Yo, 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 what's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads out there? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How all you burners, stoners, and potheads doing out there this evening? Mrs. Weedman, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Your mom would be so proud.
I know, I say well. I'm like really a grown-up now. I don't say I'm good anymore. I say I am well.
I am well.
It only took like probably 42 years of my mom correcting me. But I've got it dialed in now.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
I'm good. No, I'm not. I'm well.
You're well.
Jeez, we didn't even smoke yet.
No, not even. That's going to be the kicker. Well, burners, stoners, and potheads, we're going to smoke a new strain we've never tried, so this is going to be an interesting episode. This strain we're going to smoke, Mrs. Weeman's going to kick off the smoking, is called Orange 43. A friend of mine gave me this. It's out of Ohio. It is 30% 0.8 total, but THCA is 33.5%. THC is 1.25%. And it's got a little CBGA in there at 1.42%. And then your terpenes is terpene, myrcene, limonene, caryophyllene, and asamine, which is found a lot in a lot of sativa strains. So remember Mr. Weedman and Mrs. Weedman talking about how she dislikes Mr. Weedman on sativa? Well, you're all about to find out how much she either enjoys me tonight or doesn't enjoy me at all during this show.
We'll see if Mr. Weedman gets the shiver me timbers if he starts while he's trying to talk. That's usually what happens with too much
let's
sativa.
hope that doesn't happen on this show this evening, because
he gets all wound up and blah, blah, blah. Like,
I'll be talking 90 miles per hour. So Mr. Weeman's going to light it up while we just say, hey, we want to say a prayer, whether you pray or not. That's your choice. We love you no matter what. But we're saying a prayer for our people and our fellow human beings in Georgia, and our fellow human beings in Colorado, and also in Chicago. There were some shootings. So we just pray and hope that everybody and their families can heal through this time. Never forget, my burners, stoners, and potheads, that we are all human beings, okay? I've been trying to stay away from the news, just your local news I watch every once in a while, but all the national news and stuff, I've been trying to stay away from it all, just because it's been nice not focusing on all the negative in the world and trying to think of stuff that I can do in a positive way, and to be a positive person each and every day and put my hand out and tell people, hi, I'm Mr. Weedman, or how are you today? And in this time, again, we see it with guns and people getting murdered and killed. Man, it doesn't matter what nationality, race, religion, creed you are. We are all one human race, and people matter. And I mean, I've heard stories of the Asian community getting blasted right now. Listen, this virus is not anybody's fault, okay? You need to be kind to everybody. Humanity needs to take care of one another, because it's all we got. So remember that. And Mrs. Weedman is going to start us off here, because it is Women's History Month. And she's going to talk about a woman named Greta Carter, and she's a pioneer in the industry. But we're going to salute real quick, because we are drinking the High Life.
Miller High Life.
High Life.
The champagne of beer.
The champagne of all beers. Salute.
Cheers.
How did that taste?
Like corn.
Well, that's the High Life. But how'd the weed taste?
Oh, the weed?
Yeah.
The weed was good.
Yeah.
I was choking, as you may have heard.
Yes, as we heard, but that happens a
But
lot.
here
Mrs.
I
Weedman
am.
smoked today.
I smoked.
She
This is
smoked
the first
today.
time
Didn't take an edible, but
in a while.
yeah.
I
So
didn't take my edible because I was still working and I wasn't ready for an edible yet, and so I'm not prepared to do the
It's all right.
show with an edible.
she's
so
gonna
here I
get
am
baked
smoking.
off this Orange 43.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna smoke. Mrs. Weedman's gonna
Pardon me.
start us off.
Yep.
Take it away on Women's History Month, Mrs. Weedman.
All right. So here we are talking and focusing on another pioneer, female, Greta Carter. And a quote from her says, "Everything I dreamt and hoped to have accomplished in this industry has come to fruition. I am truly living the dream." That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Not everybody could say that, right? That's how cannabis industry pioneer Greta Carter began a conversation with Marijuana Business Daily for an interview to mark March's Women's History Month. as well as International Women's Day. Though Carter began her career in banking and construction, she pivoted to the cannabis industry in 2008 and wound up becoming a trailblazer by founding plant-touching companies in Washington state and then in Nevada and California. She's currently focused on her California-based consulting firms, High Road Consulting Group and Global Go. The latter has a footprint that spans 8 states and 10 countries. Go Greta.
Damn.
A testament to Carter's business savvy is Global Go's powerhouse team, which includes industry veterans such as Harborside co-founders Steve and Andrew D'Angelo, PharmaCann Capital, Kronos Group co-founder Paul Rosen, Southern California Coalition co-founder Adam Spiker, and more. Carter spoke with MJ Biz Daily, Marijuana Business Daily, to reflect on her accomplishments and to offer advice to women who might be interested in breaking into the cannabis sector. So here we go with the interview. Her first question was, what got you started in the industry? In 2008 is actually when I entered the space, and that was fueled by passion and just an incredible distaste for all the lies that were out there. There were lies about the plant. There were lies about how you should incarcerate people who were involved with the plant. There was disparity in the races and who was getting arrested. That brought me to Seattle and having to walk into Washington state capitol the first time, knowing that I was going to be talking about cannabis to lawmakers. I remember being so scared. I didn't know if I had enough guts to go in and talk to them, but we were trying to get laws passed. I can talk to people with sincerity and passion and credibility, and those are my strengths. Her next question was, what? Wow, that weed's making my brain go too fast. What's it been like as a female executive in a male-dominated industry for the past 13 years? She returned by saying, I've always been in a male-dominated industry. I've been asked to speak multiple times on the subject, and I've struggled because I've never encountered in any of those industries, and I don't think I'm in denial, discrimination because I was a woman. Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Pretty powerful.
Yeah. It goes back to the passion that I have to be taken credibly. Doing my research before I enter into that conversation and letting them know that they're important to me helps establish that credibility. And over-preparing with a desire to please them so that they look like the rock star and not me has gotten my buy-in with them right away. I think that when women come to the table, if there is an insecurity about their knowledge or their confidence, they'll get eaten up alive. I could totally agree with that. Yep. So then she was asked, are there any advantages that women might have over men in the business? She said, there are big advantages that women can have in this industry. First, there's the sensitivity of inclusion. I've had a number of male colleagues talk about how they like having a woman at the table because it presents a softer side of business. More than one man has admitted that they are cognizant of women's skill sets being greater than men in the area of multitasking in the area of human resources. That doesn't come out right away when you're talking to them, but they have confided that. So it must have opened up a door for me more than once, I guess. And then she was asked, have you ever struggled with loneliness or isolation, such as being the only woman in a room full of male executives who are networking? When you look at the industry with cannabis and smoking and farming and how the business has evolved or started appealing to that 20-something, 30-something male, I'm disgusted by it. The one that beat women up the worst was High Times magazine. I mean, women were sex objects with marijuana plants on them. I want to throw up. You go to trade shows and the after parties, and there are naked women acting as a buffet line item. It's horrible, just blatant sexism. There's a lot we can do in that area. And I don't know where that starts. I don't even want to try to wrestle that down. But when you talk about isolation in women, when they are in entry-level positions, they're going to be faced with it, and it's not pleasant. So I don't know what to tell them, but to get the hell out of that position, find another female in the business. And I think she was saying, like, move up, educate yourself, get out of that entry level where you won't have as many of those challenges. Then they talked about any thoughts that she might have on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the cultivation of female leadership in the cannabis industry. There have been reports that a lot more women have lost their jobs during the coronavirus pandemic than men. The reality of our country is that men have controlled the wealth for decades and decades and decades. And so the challenge women have of starting up business or getting into that leadership role has been the absence of that. I'm a perfect example. I had to sell my soul to people up in Washington because I didn't have the money to get started in those businesses. And I was sorely taken advantage of. Men control the purse strings. And there's groups out there that are trying to raise money for women, but it's a big challenge, and especially in today's world, because it takes millions to get into the legal cannabis space. What kind of tips or advice would you offer to any young female entrepreneur wanting to get started in the cannabis business? If you don't have knowledge of the industry, you need to learn it. There's a lot of schools and educational things online and places to get informed. You may humble yourself to say, I'll be a bud tender or I'll work in a grow, so you understand the dynamics of that. And do it for a year before you venture out into your own entrepreneurial world. If women have knowledge of cannabis in the industry, then I go back to the 3 most important things. 1, just really know and identify what your strengths are. Have an honest conversation with yourself. We believe we have to be superwomen, that we've got to be everything and we've got to do it all perfectly, and it's not realistic. And those women set themselves up for failure. So the quicker you identify your strengths and know your weaknesses, the better. Pretty strong.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
She's awesome.
Yeah. 2, her second most important thing, she says, is when you go into any meeting with a client, be prepared, over-prepare. And 3, get your ego out of the way and help others. So then she talked a little bit about like the boys club mentality. We talked about that a little bit last week. And she said, on the cultivation side, things are definitely male dominated. And she was just talking about like the sell tactics of the products and things into dispensaries. And she said, so anyway, she's just saying, keep it up. You're definitely a superwoman of sorts. Just be strong, be confident, be educated, and dig your heels in and get out there. So pretty cool. Greta
Pretty
Carter.
powerful. Since 2008, she's been in the industry,
Yeah.
huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
From a totally different sector.
Yeah.
business.
She pivoted. Remember we talked about that. You got to
Pivots.
sometimes you got to pivot and go a different direction that you feel fit, that's best for your career and your choice in life. And I just started my 3rd course at school this week, and there's a lot of women in this class. I'm taking it online, but you could see people who are taking the class. We had a discussion. There's a lot of women wanting to get in the industry, single moms. It was great reading some of their bios because we had to talk about ourselves and why cannabis, and just seeing a lot of single moms and a lot of young women wanting to get in the industry and willing to take courses. And this one single mom had 4 kids, and she needed a new career, and she's all in. I mean, read her bio, it was great. So I'm just excited to see more and more women get into cannabis. Mm-hmm. It's an industry that should be for everybody, and not just for
guys.
Right. And the boys club. As we read about Brownie Mary last week, her and what she did for the cannabis. There's a lot of women that were big fighters and advocates for cannabis for a long, long, long time. So this is great to every week we've read about a different woman in the industry and what they've done. So don't be fearless and have no fear when you do this, because what fear means to me is false evidence appearing real. So you can, if you can do anything, women out there, just as well as men, if not better. So don't be scared. Go out there and get it, own it, and live it. So kick ass and takes names, Greta. It's awesome. So. An important day for cannabis equity in Illinois. New bill aims to address flawed licensing rollout and 115 pot shop permits. Senator LaShawn Ford framed the planned bill as the next step to ensuring Illinois meets its goal of diversifying the white-dominated weed industry, but he acknowledged that the work won't be completed until black and brown people start making money. It's good for Illinois. So LaShawn Ford joined a group of minority cannabis applicants Tuesday to announce plans for legalization that would address the state's problematic cannabis licensing rollout and create up to 115 new pot shop permits to remove that could vastly expand Illinois' weed market. So it was a big news conference outside Nature's Care Dispensary in Westtown. The Chicago Democrat framed the forthcoming bill as the next step to ensuring Illinois meets the lofty goal of creating equity in the industry. They acknowledged that the work won't be complete until black and brown people start doing what they have to do in the industry. So good stuff for Illinois on that one. Another one, Illinois lawmakers approved bill to legalize any amount of cannabis and expunge past records. Woohoo! Any amount. Illinois lawmakers have narrowly allowed a bill to move to the House floor that would automatically legalize all cannabis possession laws regardless of amount. House Bill 3085 was approved on a 10-8 vote Tuesday morning in the House Judiciary Criminal Committee. The bill's language removes all criminal penalties for possession of any amount of cannabis and automatically expunges any criminal record for someone convicted of a similar offense. It's been a burden for over 50 years for black and brown families, and the war on drugs, and communities have been hurt over cannabis-related arrest. He pointed out that there's no limits on how much a recreational cannabis dispensary can sell. Make the owners all white Illinois millions in profits. Consumers have limits on how much they can buy and possess at one time. Under existing law, possession of less than 30 grams of cannabis flower is legal, but there are still penalties for people who are caught with more than that amount. Federal law still considers cannabis a Schedule I narcotic. Illinois Sheriff's Association Director Jim Katschuk warned that the bill would not only cause confusion over automatic expungement of anyone currently incarcerated under the cannabis conviction, but would also allow them to legally carry a firearm. This is still a federal disqualification for firearm owners' identification program, he told the committee. The automatic expunge for felonies would no longer be a firearm prohibition. The bill passed without Republican support. A couple of Democrats either voted against the measure or abstained from voting. Some who did had concerns. I have severe reservations about this one, says Representative Dave Vela of Loves Park. Flowers said that he would hold the bill in order to make some changes, but didn't specifically say that he would. It now heads to the House floor to begin sent to the Senate for consideration. I read this a couple times. I agree with you shouldn't be arrested for, a quarter pound if it's for home use. I don't know how I feel about being arrested if someone's on the black market selling major pounds and you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know where it's being grown, you don't know what's in it. To me, if they take away all how much you can carry or hold or keep or buy, people are going to be holding pounds in their house. And listen, you do what you want to do in life. I just don't know. I don't know how I feel. I don't, in the whole thing with what's going on with the gun laws right now and, people getting killed with guns, and now you can hold, I believe in the rights of people should bear arms. You keep it in your house. Keep it in your home. So with that article, I'm kind of mixed emotions about it. I want to be able to not get arrested if I have a couple eighths in my car and I'm driving to a friend's house with it. But I don't know how I feel about someone carrying 3 or 4 or 5 pounds in their car.
No, I don't know
with
why
guns.
you'd have to.
Well, right. So I don't know. I just think that people shouldn't be arrested for cannabis. Depends on how much you have on you, though. But, if you're just a personal user and you got a pound on you, you must smoke a lot. So I don't know. That's something to think about. New Deal reaches bill legalizing cannabis in New York. This has been an ongoing thing for the last couple of weeks, and Andrew Cuomo, Governor Cuomo, Pierce Nipples, has been in some shit. So this bill got taken over by the House and Senate of New York, and the final bill could be voted on by state lawmakers as early as next week. And all the bill's language has been finalized. They in this bill, they were going to allow people to home grow. So, which is great. And what's crazy about it is people are waiting for this bill to pass, and they're saying that the pot stocks are going to go through the roof once New York becomes fully legalized. So good for you, New York. Just as Frank Sinatra always said, New York, New York. Connecticut lawmakers approve cannabis legalization bill as governor pushes competing reform. Connecticut House Committee on Thursday approved the bill to legalize cannabis, a notable development as lawmakers work to reconcile what they're proposing with the governor's reform plan. The measure, sponsored by Representative Robin Porter, Democrat, cleared the Legislative Labor and Public Employee Committee in a 9-4 vote. Advocates have cheered the bill's emphasis on social equity in the industry and there's optimism in the language to be incorporated in Governor Ned Lamont's legalization proposal. Porter, who chairs the labor panel, said ending the cannabis prohibition is needed because of disproportionate impact and damage that is done to poorer communities, and it does need to be regulated in a way that provides equity to those who have been harmed the most. They were also talking about possible home grow, which is great, which I'm all in favor about. So good for you, Connecticut. Hopefully you get it. Cannabis advocates are butting heads in North Dakota because the laws that were passed and everything that were the House Bill 1420 passed the state house with heavy opposition, and it could be available in 2022, but there's opposition on this law passing. There's so much shit between North and South Dakota right now. North Dakota lawmakers are trying to learn from the mistakes of the past and not let what happened with passing of medicinal cannabis happen with recreational. A few bills were introduced to lawmakers this winter, but there are only one recreational bill left standing, and now some competing advocacy groups want changes made. It's a home grow or bust. We need the right to home grow. Good for you, North Dakota. Good for you, advocacy out there. Keep on fighting for that home grow. With the bill in the new chamber, it's going to open up adjustments to the committee. The bill has already seen one round of changes where it swelled from 9 to 48 pages. Once government puts shit in their hands, they fuck it up. Meanwhile, there are those who want to put it to a vote. Yes. A few years ago, medicinal cannabis passed a ballot measure, but the bumps in the road. Lawmakers say they are taking this path to avoid bumps again. Well, let's hope they figure it out. Fight for that home grow, though. Grow your own weed. Actually, speaking of my weed, I'm on almost ending week 1 of flower, and they are looking really nice right now, Majin Fujita. So, see what I'm saying? Connecticut, home grow. You get excited about it. Majority of Florida voters back cannabis legalization and oppose THC limits. New poll finds. As you know, as I mentioned in past episodes, Florida was the start of doing a THC limit of not making it go past 10%. But they just found a new poll out that screw you, Florida. We want our THC to be where we want it to be and don't have any limits on it. As you could tell, we just smoked over 30% THC. So people in Florida, man, fight for this. Fight for home grow. Fight for legalization of recreational cannabis in your state. 22 million people down there. So keep on going, man. Just don't let that cap happen. You'll be pissed if you let the government rule you on this. Legalizing cannabis has been a uniformly positive move in Washington State, says the governor. Of course, when people get the medicine they need or they smoke cannabis, they feel good. They're happy. I've never seen a mean stoner. Never. I've seen like myself. I'm a burner, and I see myself wound up, and I do laps. But I've never been angry when I'm stoned. Like when I get high on sativa, I run laps.
Run around in circles.
Sure, like I am right now in my mind. But as Washington State was one of the first to legalize recreational cannabis in the full state, the governor's pretty happy about this. He just says the experience in Washington has been uniformly positive, and the reduction of unnecessary law enforcement and criminal activity that really wasn't benefiting our community and job creating is a new industry. More and more jobs are being offered in Washington because of this, because of cannabis, as we talked about. So good for you, Washington, one of the first states to legalize recreational cannabis. Pow! Michigan to spend $20 million from cannabis tax revenue on cannabis research. They're going to allocate $20 million of its recreational cannabis tax revenue for this year towards cannabis-related medical research. Good for you. The move to fund research comes from the confusion about cannabis tax disbursement earlier in the month. As of March 4th, announcement about the disbursement of tax revenue from the Michigan Department of Treasury made no mention of putting the money towards research. However, Michigan law requires that the Treasury Department use that revenue to provide $20 million annually to one of the more clinical trials, researching the efficacy of cannabis in treating the medical conditions of the United States Armed Service veterans and preventing veteran suicide. Good for you, Michigan. Cannabis regulators of the Cannabis Regulatory Agency previously told MLive.com that the agency was still setting up the dispersal system for the funding. So, adult use sales in Michigan reached $444 million. That was for rec, and you add med in there, it was almost $1 billion. So, pretty good. And that's dope, Michigan. Here's a big one, and I'm not ripping on our president, okay? But cannabis-related firings in the Biden White House represents antiquated Pronounce that word for me.
Antiquated.
Antiquated. Thanks, Mrs. Weedman. Response, Congressman says. For all you out there that I didn't know what it meant, what does it mean?
I don't know officially, but like think of the words antique and outdated. You know, it's like an outdated
Like law or an outdated
Yeah.
like saying of something.
Yeah, not. Yeah,
Just so y'all know,
it hasn't evolved.
I went to
with time.
college my first time for English. I was an English major. Just so y'all know. Never said I get paid to spell. I only get paid to sell. The Biden administration has reportedly asked dozens of White House staff to resign or otherwise punish them for over past cannabis use, a response that one congressman described to Marijuana Moment as antiquated and inconsistent with the burdens of legalization movement. Despite early reporting that the administration had instituted a policy of granting waivers to certain workers who admit to prior cannabis use, sources familiar with the issue told the Daily Beast that dozens of staffers had been fired, suspended, or placed in remote work program after disclosing their previous consumption of a federal form that used as part of the background check process. All right, so before I go on, hold on a second. One person who has gone on the record about using cannabis in her youth, but who has abstinently not faced employment penalties, is Vice President Kamala Harris, who joked about her own cannabis consumption during the 2020 presidential campaign. It is a point that advocates were to pick up on after news about cannabis-related fringes broke. So here's what I'm going to say about this. During the whole campaign, Biden never said that he was going to federally legalize cannabis. He did say he was going to get it off to Schedule 1 and they would work towards federal legalization. But Kamala Harris was all about it and about changing everything. And what is Biden? I don't understand what Biden is doing. And his own VP said she smoked cannabis. So is it a double standard on this? Is he really truly about federally legalizing cannabis or getting it off to Schedule 1, or was it just to blow smoke? Just to blow smoke all of our asses. So I'm not beating our president up at all. I want truth about what his real positioning is on cannabis and what they're going to do about it. One person has gone on record about using cannabis in her youth, but who has sustainably not faced employment penalties. And then asked about the report on Friday, Representative Earl Bloomhauer, Democrat of Oregon, a co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, told Marijuana Moment that we still have a very uneven response to cannabis use in the federal government. One of the things that happened with our efforts on legalization is that we are acknowledging that there's an antiquated response to an emerging issue, he said. People now understand how crazy this is and for recreational use of cannabis or medical use, and it's something that involves well over 100 million Americans. I think about some blips that, like, occasionally people sometimes get a little edgy, but this is going to be a thing that the pass very soon. And our reform legislation that will be moving forward to will make clear that it's not a bias for discrimination. In fact, even people with past convictions dealing with cannabis will ultimately be able to be involved with the industry. This is part of the evolution. It's taking place very quickly, and we're watching changes in these policies as we speak. I still am just like, because there was another article that I read, probably 4 or 5 articles on this, and probably more out there. The president came on again and said that this was not what he was doing. So I don't know what the truth is, if he's actually really doing this, because he has his vice president. So we just got to look more into this. White House press secretary was also addressed on the controversy on Friday, pushing back on the extent of the firings over cannabis. We announced a few weeks ago that the White House had worked with the Security Service to update the policy to ensure that past cannabis use wouldn't automatically disqualify staff from serving in the White House. As a result, more people will serve who would not have in the past with the same level of recent drug use. The bottom line is this. Of hundreds of people hired, only 5 people who had started working at the White House are no longer employed as a result of this policy. But still, I know you can't smoke cannabis if you have a federal job. You can't do any drugs if you have a federal job. So I get it. But if they're not using cannabis anymore and they smoke cannabis in high school, even when he was the VP, Obama had admitted to smoking cannabis in college. So you can't.
And Bush too, right?
No, not Bush. He was a drinker. He likes his scotch.
Who else admitted to using?
Clinton.
Clinton.
So he said he smoked in college too. Who didn't?
Right.
Not many. So I just want truth and what this is all about, And here I'm going to end with this. This would also obviously disproportionately impact young people who are honest when they're applying for federal jobs. So now people are just going to lie again. So not tell if they're going out for a federal job. That's why we need to get it off the Schedule 1. It needs to be all fixed. So I'll get off my soapbox on that. But just people who we vote for, all you burners, stoners, and potheads, we all need to make sure that they're pro-cannabis and we hold them accountable to what they say they're going to do because we vote them in. They are public servants to the taxpayers and to the citizens of this country.
But you can't. That could be one of your reasons that you want to vote for somebody, but that shouldn't be your.
But if they say that they're going to fight for cannabis legalization, and then all of a sudden they turn their back on it, we need to hold them accountable.
Yes.
We voted them in. They work for us. Never forget that. They're not above us. Remember that. Okay? Colorado Senate passes bill to let K through 12 students access medical cannabis in schools. I think that's cool as long as it's with a nurse or a parent. I know they do that here in Illinois. Here's a big one. Illinois gives final approval for Curaleaf takeover of Grassroots. The acquisition was $830 million.
Wow.
That'll put Curaleaf like way up there because Grassroots is a pretty big company. Good cannabis too. They're Bordello behind the eyes. That's where it gets you every time. But $830 million is no joke. This is Women's History Month, and we believe in equity. We believe in equal standards for women, and I have an amazing wife that's sitting right across from me, and she kicks ass and takes names, and I believe that everything should be equal.
Yep.
So what do you think, Mrs. Weeman?
I totally do. But on a side note, I had some space outs while you were talking.
I saw you.
Yeah.
I looked at you.
I had some serious thoughts going on. So, number one, I am really, truly concerned about society in a lot of ways right now. But this is a very small, maybe insignificant, but interesting thing that happened today. I go to the grocery store. I'm checking out. My stuff is all on the conveyor belt. The girl's ringing it up. The entire time she's talking to the guy who's bagging, and they're talking about a video game. And I don't even exist as the customer. Never said I did not exist. I said to her, "Thank you." And she said, "Oh," like she was surprised I was there. "Oh, thank you." And then I took the bags from the boy he was really a man. He was a young man, not that young. I took the bags from him and I said, "Thank you. Have a good day." He's like, "Yeah." And then I was like, what happened to humanity? Like, why don't are we that disengaged from awareness? Like that we don't even recognize like within 6 feet of our person that we're working with people? Like that was really concerning. It's such a small little thing.
Just to say hi.
But just like when I worked retail, when I was young, it was always the customer was first. So you can have your conversation while you're rearranging things in the store. But as soon as a customer is within your space, "Hello, how are you today? Let me know if I can help you." And you shut up and you just go about your business. And you don't pick up on like banter with your friends and your associates until the clients are gone, right? I don't know, it was just so weird that it felt like they didn't even recognize that I was there. They were just in their own little world. And it's just, I don't know, it was just weird. And that's not the first time, right?
Right.
Anyway, that was my side note. And then that segued into how they should change the windows at drive-thrus now because we can't touch anything. We can't be near anybody. And I'm in a low car and then sometimes in a high car. And the window for the drive-thru isn't at the right place. So why don't drive-through windows have like a little slide out that comes up to your car and goes zzz,
You know
up and
why?
down?
You
Because
know
then
why?
they'll scratch your car and then people are going to sue them. I already thought about
Could,
it.
yeah.
It's like, oh, fuck, that's why. And then I segued into fixing the tassels on my blanket again. But I'm back, and I'm going to talk about some more women. Do you want to say something, Mr. Weedman?
I don't think you're a burner anymore.
What am I?
I think you're becoming a true stoner
Oh,
because you think like
I
a
so
stoner
much.
thinks, which is amazing. I'm
Yeah.
not saying anything bad about that at all. But like I've always said, stoners think of amazing stuff and put it on paper, and then you need a burner to help move it forward.
Mm-hmm.
You're becoming that stoner thought process, which is amazing thought process, to where you think of some of the most amazing things.
I think you're just my biggest fan.
I am your biggest fan.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks. Likewise. All right. Let's get back to the show. So, we've got another great article here, and this is about setting equal standards for women in the cannabis industry. Many women around the world were raised to believe this is a man's world, and to a certain context, that was the case back then. But as society progresses, we have come to understand that men and women should and need to be equal, both in and outside the workplace. However, changes are far from behind us. Women still endure challenging work-related situations, get little recognition from peers, and they are often faced with high hurdles when it comes to professional growth. And much of it goes unspoken. Thus, the question remains, how can we ensure things will change? Gender equality information brings awareness to the forefront. Keeping the conversation open gives hope to the invisible workplace struggle that it can be transformed and eventually disappear. Although many positive advancements have occurred in the past decade, racial and gender diversity in the cannabis industry is still lagging. Last year, the overall proportion of women in senior-level executive positions globally was 29%. In the cannabis industry, a report from 2019 revealed that the number stood around 37%. So that's pretty cool. A bit more promising, however, the survey was only based on 81 self-identified cannabis industry professionals and excluded data from respondents whose legal standing was unclear in any manner up to 2019. So the real number seems to be lower. This article is dedicated to the wonderful women in the cannabis industry who decided to help other women during one of the most challenging years in this lifetime, the year 2020. COVID-19 has deepened pre-existing divides, vulnerabilities, and inequalities, as well as opened up new fractures, including fault lines in human rights, said the U.S. Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres in a recent statement. Gender equality has been set back years. Throughout the pandemic, women have lost jobs at a disproportionate rate, many obligated to leave their professional activities to take on increased domestic burdens. This has resulted in greater poverty numbers, lower incomes, a lingering wage gap, and a lifetime of limited access to opportunities, resources, and labor protections. Yet the pandemic has also made the strength and effectiveness of many women in leadership positions shine. One such lady is famed cannabis advocate Mara Gordon. Mara said, women are the decision makers in most households when it comes to healthcare, beauty, and nutrition. As a result,
I would add one more to that.
what?
The checkbook.
Bills,
Not just
taking
bills.
care of finances.
Finances.
Yeah. As a result, they are already the subject matter experts, well positioned to lead before stepping into the boardroom. Getting women to believe in their own power and to act on it, that is the challenge, she said. Women must be their own biggest fans, and they must convey their confidence to others. It's easy to blame it on society and the status quo, but women are not going to change anything in the male-dominated industry until women demand it in real time. Men are recruited far more than women for top jobs, despite efforts to bridge the gender gap. According to Financial Times, just 5% of top jobs at big companies are held by women. This is why the first step is to keep the conversation going. Many women in the cannabis industry say they have dealt with being patronized, downplayed, and even considered to be annoying just for stating their own opinions. Before legalization, women played supporting roles in the home for growers, in the home for the growers who were out doing the work all day. There were female trimmers, of course, those stories of women needing to trim topless. Those aren't fake. Those are very real, highlighted Jackie Bryant, a freelance journalist. A recent Yale study found that males with more power due to seniority spoke more than their junior colleagues. Yet for females, power was not linked to significantly more speaking time or attention. In fact, the study explains that when male executives spoke more often, they would get 10% higher competence ratings. But when female executives spoke more, both women and men criticized them, leading to 14% lower ratings. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
It often feels like the industry is designed for females by males in the way products are designed, produced, and marketed, which can feel one-dimensional and exclusive, said Katie Backjar, director of marketing for Spirex. She admitted, I often feel like it's me versus the big boys. Brittany Carbone, founder and CEO of Tonic Vibes, added, having my hands in all parts of the industry, including cultivation and processing, I see a lot of condescension and predatory tactics. You see it more in the trade show and industrial scene, where finance or real estate bros are there just cashing in on the cannabis hangout. Despite the disheartening stats, Jackie Stang, founder and CEO of psychedelics company Delic, feels optimistic. I experience a lot less mansplaining these days, but I am certainly more aware that it's happening when it does, she said. While I have zero stomach for mansplaining, I am much more likely to make fun of it openly while it's happening, as opposed to silently detesting it. Sexism is so ingrained into our culture that men are likely not aware they're being sexist half the time. So our job is to make them aware, and hopefully with some humor, which I think is super cool. Like, call them out on it, but, like, sarcastically.
Yeah.
In a way that they're like, whoa. It just makes them stop to think, but you're not, like, making them embarrassed. Or,
Right.
Yeah, just give them a little lesson. Recognizing the progress, Ellen Melody of Mateo Communications argues that there's still a lot to be done. She said, industry-wide female participation is still skewed, and overall the progress is slow. Many of us who perform executive roles in traditionally male-dominated workplaces, like cannabis, are forced to regularly confront our own unique set of challenges, she voiced. As we celebrate all of our female disruptors who've worked so hard to create this industry and movement, we must also continue to break down barriers by stepping up and serving as mentors to young women entering the workforce. Nishi Whitley, Credo Science co-founder, concluded, it is incumbent upon those of us with more professional experience and in leadership roles to provide guidance and mentorship to those around us. Women who help cultivate the professional and leadership development of other women make the industry better for all people and our stakeholders. Yes.
That's pretty cool.
Good close there, Nishi.
Yeah.
That's good. Cool.
Good stuff.
Yep. Keep it up, ladies. There's room for everybody.
There is. Just be a home grower, though. Be able to sell your own cannabis from your home one day would be a dream.
Mm-hmm.
A dream. Europe is cannabis sector poised for takeoff. 2021 could be a critical year for the rapidly growing cannabis industry as public support for the legalization of cannabis continues to grow. What does that mean for the regulation of cannabis various industry segments, medical, recreational, hemp, and CBD wellness markets? Rapidly growing global business. The rapidly growing cannabis industry is estimated to reach $300 billion in the next 10 years and already issuing stock shares and attracting investors around the world. 2021 has already seen varying degrees of legalization for unrestricted THC content, cannabis in 34 states in the U.S., and public support is there. Today, 1/3 Americans live in the state, while recreational cannabis is legal, and 66% of Americans support legalization. A recent Pew study shows large majorities of millennials, Generation X, baby boomers say the use of cannabis should be legal. France recently launched a medical trial, potentially paving the way for medical legalization in the near future. In March, Mexico's Supreme Court is scheduled to vote on legalizing recreational use. However, the legalization of cannabis brings with it many questions. Will increased legalization expand or hinder the spread of criminal organizations? Will the stereotype of cannabis as a gateway drug block the global acceptance, or will tax revenue derived from its profitable entice governments to push forward with cannabis legalization plans despite political polarization. According to Benjamin Alexandra Genroy, the name itself is an important social symbol. You can differentiate cannabis with the marijuana, which is a very U.S.-centric name that is slowly disappearing in terms of industry terminology. As you know, we try to say cannabis on the show. We also say weed, pot, ganja, all that stuff, but we try to take marijuana out of our terms, especially a lot of research, a lot of states still use marijuana in their terms, and they need to take it out because it is a word that was used towards racism. So, Genroy identifies 4 markets within the cannabis industry, each with its own notorious pathway to decriminalization and depenalization. As cannabis markets become increasingly more mainstream, each market faces different obstacles. The industrial hemp market, the CBD wellness market, mostly developing in Europe, the medicinal cannabis market, and the adult use recreational market are all intertwined. However, the terms of regulation there are quite segmented. Because of different regulation in each country, the development of these markets is very different depending on where you look. One country that stands out from other global powerhouses as a pioneer in the cannabis industry is Canada. Is the leading position right now because they have access to some financial services. Whereas in other countries, they're not offered the same financial growth opportunity. For example, U.S.-based companies are limited to the respective states. They can't operate throughout the entire United States. And so they're having a hard time collaborating with the exporting to other countries. The situation in Europe, the legalization of cannabis varies drastically across the world. In Canada and Uruguay, both medical and recreational cannabis use are legal, whereas in Luxembourg and Ecuador, for example, only medical cannabis use is legal. In France and Germany, medical cannabis use is undergoing clinical trials, whereas in other European countries, any form of cannabis use remains illegal. Genroy advises that more human-based approach to regulation is necessary for the international advancement of the cannabis industry. I often see people who at first look at cannabis negatively and then later become moved by, for example, one of their parents experience a relief from medicinal conditions after using cannabis. This is the most important aspect of the debate, to humanize and to show how others that different kinds of people consume cannabis for different reasons. France is advancing in several cannabis markets at the same time, where they're finishing the regulation for CBD wellness, and they started a pilot program for medical cannabis use, which is going to have around 3,000 patients in 2 years. I think that what we'll see in the next year or so, a complete regulation of medicinal cannabis in France. If we unlock France, then we have the repercussions across the entire European Union. European countries are scrambling to regulate, respond to pressure to ease restrictions, and provide an outlet for the profitable business that's going global. In the next 5 years, cannabis could see a dramatic change in regulations and expansion into the global market. Genroy, a senior advisor to the French government medical cannabis trials, says cannabis is not a consumer good like any other. It has social impact and a history that you cannot fathom unless you go into that market. So I like this article a lot, and the reason why I do like it, because $300 billion, that is a lot of money that people that want to get in the cannabis industry and be a part of that should be able to make money. And I agree with standardizations. I don't agree with every regulation that I read in this country and overseas, because it's the government trying to control it, and that's what drives me nuts. A flower that was produced by nature and grown in the ground, that you could produce anywhere in the world, basically, in home grow, in your own farm. I feel very strongly about this, and I think I have for a long time that, and I'll always say this: you need to free the plant so people can make money on it and want to make a living on it and be able to sell it at farmers markets. Standards, I agree with 100%. Should be some regulations, of course. But I don't agree with governments trying to control it like they have with the war on drugs, when the World Health Organization and the global considered that everybody had it on the federal, like basically a federal one. It was a narcotic everywhere you went around the world. And now all these governments and all these major companies are trying to make billions of dollars off of it, and the people that are involved with it for the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 75 years are going to get booted out. And I think that's wrong. Just my opinion. Take it or leave it. Ontario, Alberta-led Canadian cannabis sales dropped in January, and they dropped to $282 million versus like craziness throughout the whole year. Probably bad weather, shit like that, but don't worry about it, Ontario. You'll get it back. Ireland is not ready to legalize cannabis in 2021. Green Party leader Eamon Ryan says. Ryan's segment comes as the People Before Profit plan to put forward in motion in the Dáil next year to legalize the drug in Ireland. Stop calling it a drug. The report goes to say earlier in the month, Gene O'Kelly said the party will bring forward legislation to end the prohibition of cannabis in Ireland. Green Party leader Eamon Ryan has previously called for the introduction of Dutch-style smoking cafes in Ireland, which would make cannabis legal under certain conditions. However, the transport minister has indicated that the Greens won't back the People Before Profit motion next year as he feels Ireland is not ready to legalize cannabis. Boo.
Boo.
Boo. Man, grows like a four-leaf clover.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, something cool about Latin America, they're going to get their first Cannabis Cup happening this summer. That's pretty cool. Cannabis Cups have been around in Latin America since the beginning of the century, but rarely do they attract global attention. The creators of the Mexican Cannabis Cup, better known as Copa Cannabicia Mexicana, I got that right.
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good. Are hoping that's due to change. They recently announced the first Latin American Cannabis Cup will take place August 7th and 8th. Hey, we should go down there on the 8th.
We should.
In Costa Rica, Costa Rica. It's a dream of ours to go there, at as in yet unannounced location. Organizers are hoping that the event will showcase the talent of Latin American growers and extractors, and legalization is gaining steam in the region. Mexico is inches away from becoming the world's largest recreational market. Uruguay was the first country to legalize recreational cannabis in the world, while Argentina, where a recent weed expo drew hundreds of thousands of attendees. Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Paraguay, Peru have all legalized medical cannabis in some capacity. In the Caribbean, Jamaica made key reforms in 2015, decriminalizing cannabis possession, permitting self-cultivation, and legalizing religious and medicinal uses. The event is meant to highlight Latin America and the cannabis movement at the global level. So, and the event organizer has said, right now the culture is very centralized in places like Barcelona, Holland, and the United States. We think the event will deliver a very intense punch for cannabis culture here in Latin America. There are so many countries that are coming up strong here. Hell yeah, they got great soil, man. I'm growing some great shit down there. So good for you, Latin America. I can't wait to see and read and hear all about it and talk about it on the podcast. We don't have to take birth control anymore because Mr. Weedman got snipped a long time ago, so we're all
Tell
good.
him everything, Mr. Weedman.
Well,
nothing is.
Let's talk about it, because here's the deal: birth control didn't do your body any good. So I went and got snipped, and now we can smoke cannabis all the time, and who cares? So does weed and birth control mix?
Well, they are starting to do some studies, and they are saying that there are some risks involved with birth control and cannabis. The growth of cannabis acceptance globally has brought a change in the demography of people who use cannabis. Gone are the days when people believed only potheads use cannabis. The days of backward thinking like that are long gone. I happen to argue with that. I don't think they're long gone, but they're changing. Right? In the world we live in today, more women and professionals use cannabis. And with more people using cannabis, new questions are being asked about how it can affect other drugs that these new groups of users may be taking. A couple of significant questions that have been asked by a large majority of people revolves around birth control. How will cannabis interact with birth control drugs? Are there risks involved if they're combined? And is it safe for the user? Birth control is a common part of every society. Various factors come into play when people choose birth control methods that best suit them. Many of the birth control methods that deal with hormones are estrogen-based, progestin-based, or a combination of modulation of both hormones. The question about the possibility of risks associated with combining weed and birth control can't be answered directly. because there are limited studies available in the area to help make concrete inferences. Nonetheless, the general understanding of some of the ways cannabis and hormonal birth control works gives a detailed understanding of what to expect. Before even delving into the biochemical reactions of cannabis and birth control in the body, it's important to first state that cannabis can be consumed through different methods. We all know that smoking can make users susceptible to cardiovascular issues, lung irritation, and so on. So, for the sake of this article, less emphasis will be placed on the risks incurred by combining birth control with any particular method of consumption. We'll solely look at the risk posed by the interaction of cannabinoids and birth control drugs. The goal of using birth control is to prevent unwanted pregnancy. Likewise, cannabis is also used for different primary goals, such as medical or recreational reasons. However, when these products are combined, they have a huge risk of affecting the activity of one another. More importantly, cannabis has a risk of reducing the effectiveness of birth control drugs, thereby increasing the risk of unwanted pregnancy. Experts have conducted studies that show that cannabis can affect the mechanism of action of estrogen-based hormonal birth control. Cannabis contains a major cannabinoid called tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, which causes that euphoric feeling when cannabis is used. THC affects the mechanism of action of estrogen-based hormonal birth control in the body. This happens by THC interrupting signaling between estrogen receptors. By interrupting this process, THC increases the estrogen level in the body, countering the effects of the estrogen-based hormonal birth control. This also increases the risk of blood clots in such persons developing stroke. The risk of cannabis reducing the effectiveness of birth control doesn't only lie with THC. Cannabis also contains other major cannabinoids called cannabinol, CBD, which also affects the effectiveness of birth control. Whew, how about that? That's crazy.
Yeah.
CBD is known to interact with different types of substrates in the body. This also includes birth control pills, thereby reducing their ability to effectively prevent pregnancy. CBD also monopolizes liver enzymes, and by doing so, it prevents such enzymes from sufficiently metabolizing molecules of birth control pills. This enzyme inhibition, hang on, my mouth is so dry.
Take a sip of that high life.
Holy schmoly. Let's try that again. Needed a beverage. Got a little cotton out there. CBD also monopolizes liver enzymes, and by doing so, it prevents such enzymes from sufficiently metabolizing molecules of birth control pills. This enzyme inhibition decreases the effectiveness of estrogen-based contraceptives and increases the risk of pregnancy. This is, however, not so with progestin-only hormonal birth control. So at this point, I'm just like, okay, talk to your doctor.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, this is like theory. They're saying this in theory based on studying cannabinoids and based on studying hormones. They're saying how these things effectively work in your body counteract each other. They're not saying that they know that they actually do. They're saying theoretically, on paper, this does this does that.
Right.
They're not going to work together. So talk to your doctor. I'm not saying don't take your pill. I'm not saying your pill won't work. I'm just saying be aware.
In theory.
In theory, it may not be as helpful. So it's obviously that there might be some risks when it comes to using weed and birth control. It's possible to mitigate these risks. It's possible for women to avoid the risks while still using birth control. But the most important step is to consult your professional. So again, talk to your doctor.
Yes.
Don't go off your bill. Don't go off of using cannabis. If you use both, talk to your doctor.
And men,
and guys,
just go get snipped.
Yeah.
It still works.
Do your ladies, well, I mean, do your things, like have your babies and things if that's
and
what
then
you
go get
want.
snipped. It was the best 4 days of my life. The deal was I got to sit on the couch and watch sports all weekend and eat bad food. And it was a great deal. I thought it was a good deal.
Not bad.
Not bad. So, it still works. You just shoot blanks.
All right. Where are we going with this?
Do it.
Too much information,
Do
Mr.
it
Weedman.
for your wife or
Change the
your
subject.
significant other.
Too
Easy.
much. Too much. Shut up. Come on.
I'm sorry.
All right, it's all right.
What are the best jobs in the cannabis industry today?
What are they?
I know.
What?
I mean, there's some great salary jobs out there that people can go
Yeah.
and get if you want to work in the cannabis industry. Some pay very well, some pay okay, some don't pay as much as they should. But here are some. An accountant can make from it just depends on state too. So don't take this as a Mr. Weedman said I can make $124,000 being an accountant. It's not what I'm saying. The salary range is $44,000 to $124,000. It also depends.
Substantial range.
It is, but it also depends on what state you're in.
Yeah, what state?
So
yeah.
right. So just you'll need some your accounting, bachelor's in accounting, and all that stuff. So digital media manager can make a salary between $35,000 to $115,000. Electrician, $33,000 to $97,000. It could be just for a job too. You never know, or they hire you to be an electrician on site. So, like I said, executive assistant, $38,000 to $91,000. You need a bachelor's in business administration. Graphic designer, salary between $31,000 and $89,000. You got to be a bachelor in graphic design in the field, and that's what it's just saying. Human resources, $68,000 to $206,000. I need a bachelor's in business or related field. Recommended skills, of course, would be like Google Docs, Microsoft Office, problem analysis, and resolutions. But that's a pretty big salary, $206,000. Whew. IT manager, $87,000 to $208,000. You need a bachelor's in information technology. It's recommended. Lawyer, a lot of dispensaries or big cultivators need some good lawyers. $60,000 to $208,000. Marketing director, $71,000 to $208,000. Paralegal, $32,000 to $83,000. Production manager, $65,000 to $176,000. Sales representative, $41,000 to $159,000. Security guard, it's really on the low end. This is one that concerns me because
security guards.
Yes, and before I read what you get paid, most security guards at dispensaries are armed security guards, and they're risking their life if someone comes to rob them. They're the first defense. $21,000 to $50,000.
Full time.
Full time.
That's not great.
No, not great at all. They look for law enforcement training and military training, of course, but I think security guards should make more than $21,000 a year. You should be making $50,000 to $75,000 at least. Just my opinion. Web developer, $40,000 to $142,000. Writer, $34,000 to $122,000. So some good paying jobs that the cannabis industry offers. Now I know bud tenders and a lot of them make minimum wage. And you know what? They're the face of the dispensary. Like assistant growers or people that work in the cultivator that do the trimming and all that stuff. They don't make very much either. You are very, very important in the cannabis world, so don't ever forget that. We like edibles. Wouldn't you say?
We do.
We like edibles a lot. The one thing I don't like about edibles, and you and I could both say why, they take fucking forever to kick in. You just don't know when it's going to kick. It could take 30 minutes. It could take an hour. It could take some of 2 hours. Unlike, remember the time that happened to you where you woke up the next morning and that edible kicked in on you?
Whoa. I can't go anywhere right now.
There's so much that goes in edibles when it comes to digestion, going through your liver, because the process is different than smoking or tinctures and all that stuff. There's a lot of difference when it comes to edibles. I love them. I love eating them. But wouldn't you like something that would like kick in 15 minutes or
Boom.
10 minutes or like right when you take it?
Yeah. Or I was even thinking, what if there was something like a extended release? Like, you take like a Tylenol the extended release. You only take one every 12. Yeah, like it's like slow breaks down in your body.
Great.
Imagine that, right? Well, there's actually a company in California that has entered into the world of fast-acting edibles. That's insane. Just that alone. I'm like, oh, I want to know more. Not all edibles are created equally. Neither are the companies that produce the products we want. There are many reasons you might choose to consume an edible instead of smoking flower. Some people don't like the smell of cannabis. I do. I've always loved it.
You've always loved it.
Some want a different experience, body high versus cerebral high. Some want to be high longer, and some might find it easier and healthier. Historically, there have been two huge challenges with edibles. How long will it take them for them to kick in, and how much should I consume? With all the stories we have, almost everybody has one about
Oh yeah.
over consuming edibles, right?
Oh yeah. Cried to mommy a couple
Yeah.
times.
You're waiting. Like, when is it going to kick in? Oh, screw it. I'm going to eat more. This one isn't going to work. And then, boom, double whammy. Both doses hit you and you're sideways.
As you've heard us say on the
Right.
show many a times, start low and go slow.
Yeah. And that is a weird thing, though, too, because one day you can eat the same, 10 milligram edible and you're all wacky. And then the next day you eat it and you're like, I think I'm high. I don't know, maybe a little bit. Or you get like these little waves of a little, like,
Right.
boom, just a little bit. And then I feel normal. So there's a lot of inconsistency because it has to do with I think the food that you've eaten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way your
all
body
that.
metabolizes, going
Yeah.
through your liver process, all that stuff.
So as more states continue to legalize cannabis, technology and testing becomes more precise. The experience with edibles is becoming a lot more predictable, and this is a good thing for the industry and for the individual consumer. We are now seeing hundreds of products in many states that have consistent and accurate dose controls of their products. Anything from microdoses of 2 milligrams to up to 10 milligrams, and then, just gobs of THC, right?
Yeah, can I say something about
Yeah.
milligrams though? Read your packaging when it comes to dosing edibles. Make sure you look at like each individual piece. Don't just take something and put like a bunch in your mouth. It's all properly dosed. It has to be. It's all regulated nowadays.
Yeah.
So you just learn what your dosage is. Learn what the milligrams per dose. Most packaging is 100 milligrams now.
And then one
there's
piece
some
of
that
candy
could
or
be-
one little piece of the chocolate
is
bar is
5
a dose.
milligrams or
Yeah.
10 milligrams.
You're not supposed to eat the whole candy bar.
100%. Yeah, unless you're somebody like
You're sort of professional.
you could take 100 milligrams, but I suggest read the dosage and how it works, especially if you're a newbie.
Yeah.
With edibles. Sorry, Miss Weed.
That's all right. That's all right. So we know that there's a huge range of potency. And then it being coupled with precise dosing is opening up the world of cannabis to a much larger audience. Grandmas, they're saying, are now adding it, which is so funny because, like, when we were kids, grandmas looked like grandmas. And then you think back, like, now that we're, like, creeping up on our 50s, we're like, wait, my grandma was, like, only 50. How come she had that, like, short bouffant hair and her skirt was way up to her boobs and stuff, and she had, like, little old lady shoes on? Like, why did that happen? And now, like, could you imagine that? Like, it's so different. Anyway, grandmas, as they say, so think, 50, super old, are now adding it to their tea. They're taking a little nibble infusion of chocolate before bedtime. Soccer moms are microdosing in order to take the edge off and get through a chaotic day. And some athletes are even consuming edibles in sport for a better performance and faster recovery. Regular users can take multiple servings at once and know exactly how much THC they're onboarding. There's a reason that this is the fastest growing category of consumption nationwide. But these measures being adopted around the country to help control the dose still do not address the slow and often weak absorption in the human body. What few people know is how incredibly sensitive the THC molecule is and how quickly the human body destroys cannabis when it passes through the stomach, intestines, and finally the liver before being absorbed into the bloodstream. Oh, I didn't know that. This is a long process and is precisely why it takes edibles anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours before the effects are felt. This long wait and the large variance require most people to plan ahead before getting their desired results. We've been conditioned to feel the effects of most products in 15 to 20 minutes. Think about how long it takes for an Advil or a Tylenol to work, or even a glass of wine to have its desired effect. Well, what if there was a way to enjoy fast-acting effects of smoking cannabis, but delivered with the ease and use of long-lasting, effective, and dose-controlled edibles? Whew, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Enter the world of early-onset consumables, edibles, and drinkables. There is no shortage of companies trying to claim that they have found the holy grail, the ability to produce effects in as little as 15 minutes. They often use buzzwords like nano, nano emulsions, suspended nano, water soluble. Up until now, these were almost entirely marketing ploys and unsubstantiated claims, delivering little to no early onset of controlled effect from cannabis. Cryopharm Corporation is the first company to ever develop hydroparticle lipids, a proprietary process that's patent pending, which enables THC molecules in its edibles and drinks to be rapidly absorbed by the human body in under 3 minutes, with effects felt in as little as 12.
Damn.
That's crazy. The consumer can experience a quality high that is predictable as drinking a glass of wine and can last up to 4 or 5 hours, translating into a wide variety of enhanced experiences. For the insomniacs, it's a way to stop the mind from racing and finally get some much-needed REM sleep. Want to go enjoy a concert post-COVID and learn that you can't smoke at the venue? Slip a dissolvable tablet onto your tongue and away you go. Experiencing a high-stress day and need to get through the next several hours? Pour yourself a glass of sugar-free Cali juice and relax. How about the need to wake up and kick up your step? How about the need to wake a little kick in your step? Wake up with a... I'm struggling. How about the need to wake up with a little kick in your step? That's it.
You kicked it out. You got it out.
I got it. Wake up to a hot cup of infused... I want to try this. A hot cup of infused Cafe Maria coffee, a fast-acting Colombian coffee that balances the perfect blend of caffeine with a gentle ride of cannabis. That sounds amazing, right?
Little Saturday morning cup of Joe.
Right. The cannabis landscape is ever-changing, giving us more options with better results. Cryopharm has set the bar, and they set it high, literally. I can't wait to give them a try, but we have to go to California.
It's all right. We'll go out there and visit soon.
Yeah.
Road trip.
How about
Mr.
it, right?
and Mrs. Weed, man.
Let's do it.
Coming back to Cali. Nanotech cannabis is here. And reading this article about this guy named Josh Kirby, who, got in the cannabis game back in 2013. Before CBD started showing up in coffee shops, and he was trying to basically start a company with make like an infused gum. And he said it tasted horrible. So on your edible stuff you were talking about, he's trying to make like a nano edible, basically nanotech edible, which is going to be like those strips, those
like the Listerines, the
like
breath
that.
strips?
Yeah, you just put it right in your tongue, and it's fast acting.
Ah,
And you're just like, it's between like, it's basically almost like sublingual versus ingestible, coming in and going into your body. And it's supposed to be like within like 10 to 15 minutes, like
Wow.
even quicker. There's running tests on it now. He uses distillate and CO2 extraction, and it's going to be pretty dope when this comes out. So Mr. Kirby, we were just talking about edibles. We want fast acting. He's talking about like terpenes and flavors from the terpenes really acting like a strip, like a breath strip. It'll taste like the terpenes in there and the flavonoids. And so I think it's going to be pretty dope. Hopefully he gets this out and, pretty quick, because I think people want the fast-acting edibles. I love edibles. I like tasting edibles. I love the edibles that you make. I like edibles that I get from the dispensary. A little quicker, though. If we get edibles that, like when you smoke a joint, and within 10 minutes you're
already
baked.
feel it. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be that fast-acting, but within like 15 minutes, 20 minutes would be pretty great, because I don't feel like taking like 25, 30 milligrams at a time.
Right.
I like dosing 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, not all at once. So, but hopefully this nanotech stuff comes out. These little breast strips come out soon. I think it's going to be pretty dope. So, but hey, everybody, I want to say I love you all. Mr. and Mrs. Weedman are super stoked to keep on doing this for you every week. We have some great guests coming on the next episode. We're pretty stoked to end Women's History Month. And Mrs. Weedman, you got anything else to say besides that strain got us pretty baked?
No, I've got nothing.
Nothing?
I don't think so.
Oh, all right. Well,
I'm looking
everybody-
forward to our next episode.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Mrs. Weeman's going to lead that episode.
Yep.
She taking control of the final Women's History
Us
Month.
ladies are gonna chat.
Hell yeah, it's going to be
It'll
great.
be good. Join
Yeah.
us.
Join us. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you around the world. We love you. Please check us out on WeMan420 Chronicles on Instagram, WeMan420Pod on Twitter. Send us an email, WeMan420Chronicles at gmail.com. We appreciate you, every one of you out there that's listening and sending us DMs and sending us emails. We do our best, and we'll always do our best to answer and send emails back. We love you all. Thanks for listening. As Paulie always says, smoke smart, puff puff and away.
Puff puff pass.